a lot of us wind up falling into cycles of anxiety and depression because we have been trained at a certain level to believe that the problem is always us. And what I've discovered is that there are a lot of people who are incredibly gifted and incredible contributors and collaborators who just run into managers and bosses who don't know how to lead or don't know how to be humane or are insecure. At the end of the day, if someone lets you sit on the bench for 10 years and they never advocate for you, that's 10 years of your life that are down the drain. And they're not going to come to you at the end of those 10 years and say, you know what, Pete, I'm sorry you wasted your entire 30s. It's going to be on you to make up for that lost time. Sponsors are individuals who are bringing your name up when you're not in the room. And as is often said, 80% of what is said about you is said when you're not in the room.
That's Dr. Nicholas Pearce. He's an award-winning professor of organizational behavior at the Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern University and founder CEO of the Vocati Group, a management consultancy, and a respected faith leader. Among his books and papers and works is the article titled, What to Do When Your Boss Won't Advocate for You, published in the Harvard Business Review. And he's here to share some of the wisdom from that article and his lived experience in that domain. So you'll learn 1, the harsh truth behind why many don't advance. 2, why even a great mentor is no substitute for a sponsor. And 3, how to find support if you aren't being supported. I'm Pete Vocati. This is How to Be Awesome at Your Job. And now, here's Nicholas. Nicholas, welcome.
Thanks, Pete. Good to be with you.
I'm so excited to be chatting with you. You have so much wisdom in so many domains. But my producers originally found you from your phenomenal Harvard Business Review article called What to Do When Your Boss Won't Advocate for You. And it sounds like you struck a nerve with this one, Nicholas. What's the scoop here?
I think this is something that a lot of people struggle with. People long to have great mentors and great managers who are invested in their success and care about them as humans. But if there's something that we learned during the pandemic, it's that a lot of leaders don't care about the humanity in us. They view us as not human beings, but as human doings. And for those who have managers who don't really care about them, don't care about their forward progress, or won't bring their name up in rooms that they're not able to occupy, it creates a challenge to figure out how to navigate your career and your life forward when you recognize you're lacking that sponsorship.
Ooh, Nicholas coming strong right out of the gate. I love it. So they don't care about our humanity. That's a strong sentence. And yet it seems accurate. It's not that they wish us harm actively, but it's just kind of like, at the end of the day, you are a means to producing a thing. And that's a fairly prevalent attitude. If you had to hazard a guess, what percent of managers you think fall in the humanity affirming versus humanity column?
That's a hard number to guess at, but I can tell you that most corporations, based on how they are structured, tend to look at people as products. Even the language of human resources or human capital. Human capital was, I guess, designed to be something of a more humane way of saying HR. But when you think about human capital, putting human capital alongside physical capital or financial capital, these are resources that are under the control of the organization for the organization's purposes, not things that have lives of their own to be valued. So putting people in the thing column, I think is very, very common. And unfortunately, most folks who have been in the working world for any amount of time know that while HR may sound like they exist for the people, most HR departments exist to shield the organization from lawsuit. So HR typically is not really there for you. HR is there for the company.
All right. Telling it like it is. So just for funsies, is there a language that you prefer to use when it comes to organizations and people, like the people department or learning and development? Like, what are the terms you like to use?
I love the concept of people and culture, right? Having an executive leader who is primarily responsible for the development and well-being of the people in the organization and the stewardship of a healthy culture. I think that language works well. I think learning and development, as you mentioned, Pete, is great because it focuses on the value added to the people and their development. Anything that does not make it sound like the organization owns or controls assets, that type of language, I think, has its own limitations.
Oh, Nicholas, I just love where you're rolling. And I know in your background, you are both a business school professor and a pastor. And it's really beautiful to kind of see how the thinking interplays here in terms of just even the words we use, we can find irksome or even dangerous.
That's exactly right. I think words have power and words should be used with intention. And I think the words that our organizations and corporations have used over the years are reflective of the desired intention. And as we begin to deconstruct some of those harmful ways of thinking and being in workplace life, we have the opportunity to refresh not only our perspectives, but our language as well.
Oh, lovely. All right. And we're just getting started talking about advocacy. So we're going to say this word a lot. Maybe since we're talking words, could you give us some definition? When we talk about having a boss or someone advocate for you at work or advocacy, generally speaking, within work, what do we mean by that? You said speaking up for someone when they're not in the room. That's got a ring to it. Are there any other dimensions of that you'd highlight?
Absolutely. So I think about advocacy as the act of sponsorship, and I juxtapose sponsorship against mentorship. So let me describe the two and contrast them. Mentorship is having that person who will coach you, who will pull you aside and say, hey, I like what you did there. Maybe a little bit more of this next time, a little bit less of that. Maybe they're going out to coffee with you once every couple of weeks or every 4 weeks or every quarter. They're there to help you navigate. They're there to invest in your development. They care about you as a human. They care about your performance. They're trying to invest in making you a better you. Sponsorship is altogether separate. Sponsorship is not so much about making the direct investment of time in giving feedback and having lunch regularly and having coffee and giving micro corrective feedback. Sponsors are people who are opportunity creators. They are career accelerators and catalysts of opportunity. These are individuals who are bringing your name up when you're not in the room. And as is often said, 80% of what is said about you is said when you're not in the room. So for many people, especially women, people of color, and others who tend to be excluded from a lot of opportunities in many work environments, they tend to be over mentored. We'll give you a coach. We'll give you feedback. We're going to make you a better you, under the guise that the reason you have not ascended is because you need to be made better. But what they really need are sponsors, people who are willing to say, hey, did we consider giving Nicholas that opportunity? Did we consider giving Jane that promotion? What are the reasons why we're holding her back? Are we saying she lacks quote unquote seasoning? What exactly do we mean by that? Does she need to add paprika and stir? Like, what are we saying? The people who are willing to do the blocking and tackling to make sure that organizational politics or bias don't derail your career, those are your sponsors. And so many people are over mentored, but under sponsored. And so the whole concept of advocacy speaks to an individual using their credibility, their capital on you to advance you and your career.
Mm-hmm. Well, so then can you tell us, it's like, okay, boys, it's really important that we have people speaking up for us when we're not in the room. How would we even know the extent to which this is or is not happening since we're not in those rooms?
Absolutely. You can tell, one, what your boss is saying to you offline. Do you and your manager have a relationship where feedback flows naturally and continuously? Or are you in a situation where your feedback comes mostly in the form of a formal annual or semi-annual review process during which you get blindsided with feedback that sounds off base? If so, that could be a warning sign that your boss is not going to bat for you when you're not in the room. Do you and your boss enjoy a collaborative relationship? Or do you feel like your boss is competing with you? If your boss competes with you because perhaps they view you as a threat to their advancement or as a threat to their supremacy, they're probably not advocating for you. If you've been in a role for 3 or 5 years and there's never been a conversation about what your future looks like. I mean, let's be for real, Pete. If you've been in a role a year or two and there hasn't even been a conversation about what your future looks like, that may be an indication that your boss doesn't care what your future looks like and that they're certainly not advocating for you and for it at tables that you may not even know exist in the organization.
Nicholas, what I love what you're saying in that it's very candid and blunt, and I think some of us don't even want to entertain the belief that this harshness, reality is present when we're hearing a lot of nice things.
Absolutely. I have been in spaces personally and have coached leaders and employees, students of mine who had all the raw ingredients. I mean, had all the learning, all the degrees, all the certifications, all the skills, all the receipts in terms of high performance, and yet found themselves stuck. And what happens for many people is that it's the ultimate gaslighting. You're left to wonder, what did I do wrong? What did I not do right? Is it me? What am I lacking? What do I need to change? Am I too much? Am I too little? Do I need to turn up, turn down? What is it that's wrong with me? And a lot of us wind up falling into cycles of anxiety and depression because we have been trained at a certain level to believe that the problem is always us. And what I've discovered is that there are a lot of people who are incredibly gifted and incredible contributors and collaborators who just run into managers and bosses who don't know how to lead or don't know how to be humane or are insecure. And because this continues to do incredible damage to people in an era and in a season where mental health needs are already at their highest, I feel at some level, Pete, that the truth will set the people free. And to release themselves from the fear or the feeling that they are not enough, and to perhaps sometimes release their boss from the expectation that they will be a good advocate when perhaps they don't want to be or don't know how to be. Now, I do have to rush and add this, that if you're just a chronic underperformer, these words don't apply to you, right? Like, you need to do better. But if you find yourself consistently meeting or exceeding expectations, you're knocking the ball out of the park, so to speak, on a consistent basis. Everyone can see your brilliance and your promise, but your boss. Maybe it's not you. It might just be them. And they're not perfect people. They're people. They're not perfect, but it is your life.
Well, I'm wondering, like, if folks find themselves in this position, they might feel kind of stuck. Could you maybe give us a bit of hope, a bit of inspiration, a story of someone who saw a transformation in this department in terms of advocacy wasn't happening and then it kicked off and good things unfolded?
Absolutely. One of my coaching clients had this very scenario happen where the boss was really great in terms of giving mentorship and guidance and coaching and feedback. Very warm relationship. Their families got together on weekends. I mean, it seemed like a really healthy relationship on one level, but they recognized that at a certain level, the boss really appreciated them being in that role because, let's just say, they got their TPS reports in on time every time. And the concept of losing that individual to another team or to a higher level, perhaps in a different business unit, would create issues for that boss. And so that boss at a level was conspiring to sub-optimize that individual by being nice, being kind, keeping them happy, but not giving them the growth opportunities that they deserved and needed to continue to fulfill their potential. So this individual had the conversation with their boss and said, hey, I really enjoy being on your team. Help me see what future could look like. Help me see what next can be. And that opened up a healthy conversation where the boss kind of came clean and said, I knew this day would come. And I've really enjoyed having you on the team. And they kind of came clean about how there were opportunities that existed in the organization, and they were waiting on that individual to come forward to raise their hand and say, hey, I actually do want to grow. I don't just want more money. I don't just want autonomy. I don't just want flex hours. I actually want to grow. I want to be able to be my best and become even better at a higher level in the organization. And so that conversation actually opened the door for the boss to advocate because the foundational relationship was in place, high performance was already acknowledged. And so this was just an invitation to the boss to move from mentor to sponsor.
That's cool. Understood. And I like what you say there is like, it's not necessarily evil. And like they have warm feelings about, it's like, no, this person is so amazing. I feel so blessed and delighted to have them on their team. But it's just a little bit of selfishness, and which we all are subject to. It's like, this is so amazing. I don't want this person to ever leave. But again, that it's a finite clock. When there's someone amazing in a role, it's like it's only a matter of time before they go to a bigger role. I think this is the way of all things. I think we had a handyman who was awesome, and someone said, "Oh, he probably should increase his rates." And I said, inevitably, he will.
That's right.
We are aware of his awesomeness.
Exactly. We don't want to be the ones to tell him that, or we're happy to tell him as long as he keeps our rate unchanged. All right. But this is exactly it. This happens a lot, Pete. It happens in the nonprofit sector a ton, where you have long-serving executive directors or CEOs or presidents. They'll be in the seat for 25, 30, 40 years. And they'll have a talented person underneath them in the organization who everybody within a mile can see has CEO or executive director capability. But that CEO recognizes, I'm 55 and I have no intention to retire anytime soon. So, because there's only one CEO at a time, and I intend to sit in this seat for another 10 to 15 years, I have a choice to make. Either I invest in you becoming the very best you can be, which means losing you, or I continue to sub-optimize you to make you question whether you have what it takes to be in my seat. But because I'm not ready to give up my seat to you at this time, now I'm not advocating for you. I'm not bringing your name up in the marketplace because I could lose you and you fulfill an important part on this team. I value more what you produce than who you are.
Oh, well, Nicholas, you are just touching on exactly, I think, some eye-opening stuff for a lot of people. Like, what's wrong with me is like, oh, this is what's really going on under the surface. Understood. So lay it on us. If we find ourselves in such a position, what do we do about it?
Well, one very practical thing that we can all do is to look for advocacy elsewhere. Your boss may not be the only advocate you can get in your organization. Ideally, you'd have a direct supervisor who could go to bat for you because they know your work most closely. But there are other influencers who can give you the boost you need. There could be someone in the organization that is even more high ranking than your boss, maybe an ally who might bring your name up. Maybe it's someone you met in the context of an employee resource group. Maybe it's someone who you met at the company holiday party. Maybe it's someone you ran into at a company-wide task force. Maybe it's someone who, when the time came for the company's intramural softball team to form, they were the person you rode to the games with. Who knows? But there are other people who can speak to you and can perhaps be an accomplice, a co-conspirator, if you will, in advancing your cause and advancing your career. Another really helpful thing, and this is something that's hard for a lot of us, is to build our networks outside of our organizations. For many of us, we may be socialized to feel that that is disloyal or underhanded or somehow strategic in the most nefarious sense. But I believe that what I call 360-degree advocacy is a gift that we should all take advantage of. We've got advocates above us. We've got advocates beside us who are our peers. And we can also have advocates and our direct reports. Not underestimating the value of people beyond your boss in your organization can be helpful, but also people outside of your immediate workplace who may be LinkedIn connections or are part of professional associations or alumni groups or other civic and community service outlets. Those individuals can speak to your promise as well and may be able to help create opportunities for you outside the organization. And sometimes, as the saying goes, folks won't miss the water until the well runs dry. And sometimes you give people the gift of goodbye, and it doesn't have to be messy. It can just be an investment in self. Investing in yourself and your future does not have to be selfish. Because at the end of the day, let's face it, Pete, if someone lets you sit on the bench for 10 years and they never advocate for you, that's 10 years of your life that are down the drain. And they're not going to come to you at the end of those 10 years and say, you know what, Pete, I'm sorry you wasted your entire 30s. It's going to be on you to make up for that lost time. And an apology is not going to do it. You owe it to yourself. I was having a conversation with a group of executives who were whining and complaining about millennials and Gen Z being disloyal. And I said, listen, y'all can complain and moan about that all day long until you recognize that companies aren't loyal like they used to be. Unless you're giving Gen Z a pension, which you're not, the company's already said, we're not really loyal to you. If you say in your HR policies that in order for a 401k or 403b to be fully vested, an individual has to work there 3 years, you're telling them from the outset, we're investing in you, sort of. Until you've been here a while, we're going to claw back part of the money we've invested in your retirement. So all of these are signals to individuals that companies aren't loyal. And so if companies aren't going to be loyal to their people, how can you expect people to be loyal to their companies in the way that they were 75 years ago? The rules of the game have changed. And so it's not about being disloyal or selfish. It's just about being smart.
That absolutely resonates. And that was kind of my philosophy when I started my career, is like, I don't think I can count on any employer long-term ever. So it felt kind of mercenary. It was like, what can I do to make sure I have skills to do anything? And I was like, strategy consulting seems like a good choice out of undergrad. And I think it served me well with developing some skills and some network and some savings to then go do entrepreneurial things. But Nicholas, I got to hear, when you drop these truth bombs on these executives whining about the millennials, how'd they reply?
Oh, they got it immediately. I said, listen, all of the participation trophies and all of that stuff, it's cool when it's your kid or your grandbaby out there on the soccer field getting the little trophy because they put their cleats on the right feet. But when they become your employee, all the participation trophy stuff where you're getting rewarded for effort, that goes out the window. It goes out the window. And so recognize that it was not the millennials and Gen Z that made participation trophies. It was the uncles and aunts and moms and dads and coaches who could not handle walking away without a shiny object because they showed up and tried their best. And the participation trophy industry was born. But millennials didn't demand it. It was the world into which they came of age. They understood it as an expectation. And if Gen X and baby boomers had not put participation trophies in the lexicon, millennials would not expect them in the workplace.
Understood. Okay. So we're getting a lot of good context from all over here. So build a network outside of the organization. Any other top tips you'd recommend if we find ourselves not having that advocacy? What else should we do?
Absolutely. One of the most common cliches that I have heard that I actually believe has truth underneath it is that sometimes rejection can be protection and redirection.
All right. And it rhymes too.
And so if you find your manager not advocating for you, it could very well be an intentionally closed door that is designed to push you in the direction of purpose. This is something that I talk about a fair amount in my book, which is entitled The Purpose Path, A Guide to Pursuing Your Authentic Life's Work. And what I find is that in many cases, the adversity that we may face, whether personally from a health perspective or otherwise, or even professionally in terms of doors that are slammed shut in our faces, sometimes that adversity is actually the grist of discovering purpose. Oftentimes people think that the purpose that we have in life is to just be happy. And I'm not the happiness police. I'm not anti-happiness, Pete. However, I have discovered that oftentimes it is those painful circumstances that push us into a place where we discover purpose that we would never have discovered before. And so while many of us want to organize our lives around the avoidance of pain, if we avoid pain, we actually may be avoiding purpose. Now, I'm not saying we should be trying to attract pain. Hear me clearly. All I'm saying is that sometimes when a boss doesn't advocate, when a door closes, it could be a catalyst that is pushing you toward purpose and protecting you from calamity that you had no clue was coming your way. So really embracing the moment in a different way and reframing it as not so much this is a flaw in me, but perhaps more this is giving me an opportunity to reflect, to retool, to perhaps even take a break and rest and really think about how I connect my soul with my role. Maybe I was just doing a job, earning a 9-to-5 paycheck, doing the things, paying down my student loans, making the moves, doing the things. But now I actually want there to be meaning in my work. Yeah, I've got skills. Yeah, I work for the big shiny company with the stock options and all the trinkets. But now I actually want to do something with my life that matters. I want to have purpose in my work. I want to connect my soul with my role. And maybe that closed door was the catalyst to get you to see that purpose is calling.
Ooh, that was well said. Well said. Well, tell me, anything else you want to make sure to mention before we shift gears and hear about a few of your favorite things?
Sure. I think that as much as we often think about what happens when others don't advocate for us, I think that it's important that we recognize our responsibility to advocate for others. Oftentimes, it's very easy to think about what your boss is or is not doing for you, and you're absorbed in what's happening over your head, and you're thinking that you are the main character in the organization's story, and you are not. Many of us don't advocate for others because we've never been advocated for. And while that may be understandable, I don't think that's a valid excuse. We have to be intentional about lifting as we climb, not having the crabs in a barrel mentality where only one of us can be advocated for at a time. And if it's not me, that means you win and I lose. I think this zero-sum game mentality, this fixed pie thinking, is eroding the fabric of society. And so I think as many people who may be attracted to our conversation today because they find themselves in spaces where they weren't getting advocated for, perhaps being the leader you wish you had can be a very important part of your life's work and your own personal scorecard in terms of how you evaluate your leadership.
Big thanks to Nicholas for sharing his wisdom with us. And big thanks to our sponsors. Check them out. One sponsor to check out is Harvard Business Review. This brilliant magazine, published at hbr.org, is the leading destination for smart management thinking. Fun fact, HBR has been mentioned in 108 episodes of the show. That's because HBR has great stuff that comes up often. They've got explainer videos, podcasts, real-world case studies, and much more. I think of HBR each night that I put on my special orange glasses. Their article, Will Blue Light Glasses Improve Your Sleep?, revealed that those who wore them reported better sleep and a 7% improvement in work performance as compared to those who wore the sham glasses. So I cite HBR anytime anyone tells me that I look silly wearing them. Now, much of HBR's content is available for free when you sign up at their site. Subscriptions that get you unlimited content cost $10 a month. If you visit hbr.org/subscriptions and enter the promo code AWESOME, you can save 10% off of that subscription. Again, to save 10% off of your HBR subscription, go to www.hbr.org/subscriptions and enter the promo code AWESOME. One sponsor to check out is Storyworth. Whenever I'm thinking about meaningful Father's Day gifts, Storyworth leaps to mind. Storyworth helps you preserve precious memories and stories from your father for years to come. Each week, Storyworth emails your loved ones a thought-provoking question that you get to help pick, such as, what's the bravest thing you've ever done? I personally love the prompt so much that I have refreshed Storyworth's questions page many times looking for more. Storyworth makes the writing process super quick and easy. All your loved one needs to do is respond to that email with a story, and then you get a quick copy of that. And after a year of this fun, Storyworth compiles your loved one's stories and photos into a beautiful keepsake hardcover book that you'll be able to share and revisit for generations to come. Families love Storyworth so much, they've got 25,000 five-star reviews on Trustpilot and have millions of stories preserved. So give all the fathers in your life a unique, heartfelt gift they'll all cherish for years. Storyworth. Right now, you can save $10 on your first purchase when you go to storyworth.com/awesome. That's storyworth.com/awesome to save $10 on your first purchase. And big thanks to our sponsor, Acorns. Acorns makes it easy to start automatically saving and investing for your future. You don't need a lot of money or expertise to invest with Acorns. In fact, you can get started with just your spare change. Acorns recommends an expert-built portfolio that fits you and your money goals, then automatically invests your money for you. NerdWallet.com, whom I love on these sorts of matters, gives Acorns a whopping 4.7 stars and says, quote, if you want to make the most of your spare change, there's no better place to do that than Acorns. Head to acorns.com/awesome or download the Acorns app to start saving and investing for your future today. And we got a legal disclaimer here. It may not be representative of all clients. Tier 1 compensation provided. Compensation provides an incentive to positively promote Acorns. View important disclosures at acorns.com/awesome. Investing involves risk, including the loss of principal. Please consider your objectives, risk tolerance, and Acorns' fees before investing. Acorns Advisors LLC, Acorns, is an SEC-registered investment advisor. Brokerage services are provided to clients of Acorns by Acorns Securities LLC, member FINRA/SIPC. For more information, visit acorns.com. Right on. And now could you share a favorite quote, something you find inspiring?
Weeping may endure for the night, but joy comes in the morning.
Mm-hmm. And a favorite study or experiment or bit of research?
A favorite bit of research that I love talking about is this vintage study that was conducted by Kathy Phillips, Katie Lillenquist, and Maggie Neal.
Okay. And a favorite book?
Necessary Endings by Henry Cloud.
Okay. And a favorite tool, something you use to be awesome at your job?
Sabbath.
And a favorite habit?
Favorite habit is prayer for me. It's time to really refocus.
All right. And is there a key nugget you share that really seems to connect and resonate with folks? You hear them quote it back to you often?
Yeah, oftentimes it's really in the space of this purpose conversation that we started to explore a little bit toward the end. And it is the fact that you owe it to yourself to live a life on purpose. You were created with a purpose. You have a reason for being. And you owe it to yourself to discover that and to do something about it. A lot of people say that they are reflecting or meditating or praying for purpose because they need clarity on what their purpose is. And for some people, that is truly the case. But there's a significant percentage of people who I think are probably with us today, Pete, who don't need further clarity. They need more courage. And once they acknowledge the fact that they've got the clarity they need already, the missing ingredient is courage, now it's their move.
All right. And if folks want to learn more or get in touch, where would you point them?
NicholasPearce.org is a great place. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, social media, Facebook at NAPPHD. I also have a TED Talk that folks have been enjoying entitled, Don't Ask Me What I Do. So any of those spaces will be great to connect.
And do you have a final challenge or call to action for folks looking to be awesome at their jobs?
Be the change you want to see. If you feel like you're not getting advocated for, advocate for someone else. If you had a terrible onboarding experience, make someone else's onboarding a little softer. If you feel like it's time for you to pivot from a job, don't be messy on the way out the door. Embrace the gift of the lessons you learned in the previous season and take the high road and walk out with grace, not looking at that past experience as time wasted, but looking at yourself perhaps as an alum of that organization or institution and always seeking to do your best no matter where you find yourself.
All right. And Nicholas, this has been fantastic. I wish you much good advocacy and purpose.
Thanks, Pete. Likewise.
What's really sticking with me on this conversation with Nicholas is when the manager said, I knew this day would come. There would come a point in which this conversation would be had. And that just makes me think, wow, there's no need for that to take years and years. And then some of the things the manager can offer, even if they really don't want to see you go, like, hey, maybe some more flex time, maybe some more pay, maybe some more autonomy, maybe some more work from home would be cool. Well, maybe that's available for the taking. Thought-provoking stuff to see behind the curtain of what's potentially really going on, which may be hampering you as a high performer. Find some courage, have that conversation. Good things may very well unfold. If you want to get a summary write-up of the wisdom Nicholas shared, an email you can read quickly, sign up for the Gold Nuggets at awesomeatyourjob.com, which will also unlock the vault, the archive of all 965 of these summaries. And if you want to check out the show notes or transcript or links to items we've referenced, such as the HBR article there, visit us at awesomeatyourjob.com/EP965 or simply click the hyperlink in the description. If the platform you're on has those things clickable. Hope to catch you next time, and peace.
Look around. You can find cars like these on AutoTrader. New cars, used cars, electric cars, maybe even flying cars. Okay, no flying cars, but as soon as they get invented, they'll be on AutoTrader. Just you wait. AutoTrader.